Evening. So I talk about this a bit on here. One of the reasons I like doing this is it gets you out of the house to go and see films that you might otherwise pass up. Now, when you do that, when you just kind of try to go to a movie just about every week, you're gonna run into just the basic odds that there's some of these things are going to be hidden gems and others are going to be big pieces of shit that should have stayed hidden. And then you hit weeks like this where literally I spent so much time looking at the coming releases and what was out in the various theaters and just trying to figure out something. I wasn't even sure I was going to go to the movies tonight because I really couldn't decide on anything. Nothing sounded good. Nothing looked good. The trailers for everything that came out or has come out just looked, I don't know, just none of it caught my eye. And I decided, like, at the last second, like, literally this film started at 7:30. I decided at 7:05, I think, to run down here and see it. And what finally broke it between this and another movie is this one was shorter and it started sooner, you know? So I wasn't planning on liking it. I wasn't expecting anything from it. And I must say, this little film does not suck. In fact, I will go out and say that this is actually a fairly charming little film. And I did not expect that from the trailers. I did not expect that from what little I'd heard about it, which was not a lot. You really had to dig. It felt like it was going to be another, pardon me, I'm not trying to be rude here to anybody, but another teeny film, because it is a teenager film. It is aimed at, that early teens to preteens kind of thing. And those films, because they usually are written by people my age, 40 to 50-year-olds, usually based on books that are, you'll forgive me, not exactly the high end of literature. They're pandering a lot of the times. So you don't expect much out of it. But I must say, it took a while for me to get into it for a couple of reasons. Number one, of course, I am not the demographic. Clearly, I am not the demographic. Secondly, I am just not... Sappy love stories don't necessarily work on me, especially recently. I'm a stone cold cynic, folks. I hate to be that way. I wish I wasn't that way, but it's the way I am. So finding a film that you actually kind of go, oh, that actually is kind of sweet, it's a challenge for me. But this one, I gotta say, there's an honesty to this film that you don't see in a lot of these teen movies. They try for it, but I don't think they reach it. And I think the reason is this film is honest with itself about its premise, both, in the metaphorical sense and in the practical sense. Let's talk about that. So the film, if you haven't heard of it, it's based on some YA book, of course, about this teenage girl named Rhiannon who ends up falling in love with this person. We don't know if it's really a male or female. This person who every day, this entity basically wakes up in a different body. And so you can kind of see the trials and tribulations of that. So on a subtextual level, this film it's pretty clear what the metaphor of this film is, of what the message is, and that is, the concept of, it's not what a person looks like or whatever, it's what's on the inside. Very, old school lesson, but I think one that is very relevant. It's always relevant, but it's very relevant in this day and age when there is, I think we're much more open about, different kinds of romance and different kinds of, attraction. And I think this is a film that, is playing with that. I don't think it hits it quite as well as it would like to, and we'll talk about that in a second. So on a subtextual level, it's honest with itself, and it works. You know that that's what they're going for. You know that that's the story they're telling. And they're going for it. On a narrative level, it's honest with itself about the complications about that type of relationship. This is not it's pretty clear when you go in that this is obviously one of those romances that is not going to end happy. We know, just the basics of the setup of the scenario are such that, this isn't going to go well. And I think the characters are honest with themselves about that. And it represents, I think, a form of maturity. All these teen movies are always about some kind of coming of age, some kind of realization of the real world. And this film, I think, does it better than a lot of these kids. Basically, if you're looking at it as another metaphor, for young love, that, young love and first loves are incredibly powerful, but they're not always going to last. Unless you're my cousin who married her high school sweetheart and they have 2 beautiful children. In that case, yes, the first love is going to work out. For the rest of us, not so much. But I think the characters handle it with a maturity that is understandable for their age. These aren't characters that are acting older than they really are. They aren't characters that are, talking like 20 and 30-year-olds. So I think you really feel like the journey that they're making emotionally makes sense and is logical. And that's hard to do with teen films. It really is. And I think this film pulls it off fairly well. Now, let's not let this off the hook completely. Is this a perfect film? By no means. It's a high concept teen love story. Of course it is not going to be perfect. So let's hit some of these things that did kind of bug me. So number one, while a second ago I was saying that on a subtextual level it's working from that premise of, what is love, and, is it necessary to be a male or a female, or, same sex, different sex, they touch on transgender and all that. So I think that, the film gets credit for kind of attempting to go there, but honestly, most of the people that's the name of the character who keeps jumping bodies, that he spends time in are all boys. He inhabits a female 3 times, I think, and one of them is Rihanna. There's a very cute section kind of in the middle of the film where he's in her body, and that's kind of funny. That's a really neat little section. But he only jumps into a female body twice, other than that. I also can't help but notice that all of the males he jumps into that she is romantically attracted to are all fairly attractive young men. The one guy who is not classically attractive, and I'm sorry I forget his name, I forget the actor's name, but he was Peter Parker's best friend in Spider-Man Homecoming. He's the one she's afraid of. He's the one that he jumps into when he's explaining what he is and what goes on with him for the first time. So, of course, that's the time when you're not going to believe it when the character is going to think that something's up, that the person's psychotic, or whatever. So, of course, when that happens, this isn't coming from an attractive white person or even an attractive black person. It's coming from a overweight, bald, it's coming from the person that she even calls a scary-looking dude. No time during their relationship does A jump into the body of someone not gorgeous. And I think that I understand why it is a fantasy film. Obviously, it's a romantic fantasy film. I get that. But I think it undercuts your message when everybody that she is with, when she's saying, I don't care who it is as long as it's you, that's easy to say when everybody she's with is good looking. And, never once, she jumps into someone who he says doesn't work out, and the guy's a little heavier than normal at one time, but still, it's not, so yeah, never really anybody outside of that norm still. So I think that it kind of cuts the legs out of its own message. I also think this movie bypassed some good opportunities there to have her be in love with someone not classically attractive. But it also, it had one of the coolest moments, and it didn't go there. He wakes up in the body of a blind person at one point. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, this is going to be interesting. How is he going to find her? How is he going to, know it's her, and all that when he can't see? And they don't do anything with it. They cut to a couple days later after he's jumped bodies. So, none of that cool stuff was in there, and I was really disappointed in that. Also, this film kind of has the problem that a lot of these films do, and that is that our main hero, our main protagonist, Rhiannon, whatever the actress's name is, the actress does a fairly good job for a young actor. I don't know if I'm just getting older or what, but she looks like she's 12. But I notice a lot of teenage girls look 12 to me now. They're getting smaller and everything. So, but she looked 12, so it was kind of weird to see her, doing some of these romance scenes. But, whatever. The actress does a fairly decent job, but the problem is it doesn't feel like she's given much to work with in terms of her own character. This Rhiannon, this girl, is supposed to be so wonderful that she becomes a constant in this life of ever-changing madness. But, as I look at her, yeah, she was a nice girl. She was an attractive young woman. But aside from that, we don't really know anything about her. Which is funny because so much of the movie is coming from her eyes. You'd think there'd be a little bit more about her. But really, if you asked me something about this character that wasn't a generic, oh, she's nice, she has a good heart, she's this, she's that, I know nothing. Everybody else around her, all of her friends, are constantly saying the line, I've got to get to practice. Meaning they have interests, they have, identities. She doesn't do anything like that. She doesn't have any, we don't see that she has any interests. She doesn't even have the quirky interests of characters in these movies, photography or painting or anything like that. She is just kind of a blank cipher. And, I think the problem with that is, again, look at if you use the example of Beauty and the Beast, the Disney version. Why, who is Belle? People can give you the answer of who is Belle. She's an independent thinker. She likes to read. She dreams of bigger adventures. stock character traits, but character traits. Something that gives her a personality to work off of. And this character doesn't have a personality. Well, she gets by on charm. The actor is charming. She's got a lot of charm and can express a lot through her eyes. She has very big eyes, in a nice way, very big blue eyes, and she's very expressive through her eyes. So the character gets by on charm, but I think if you want to be an anchor for someone, I think the character needs to be a little bit more specific than what she is. So I don't think the film really, like a lot of these films, I think it cut its legs out from under because it didn't want to get too deep. It wanted the character to be, an empty vessel. Ironically, it wanted the main character to be an empty vessel for all the readers. But I don't think that works in this instance. Also very interesting. The only two actors in this I recognize is the guy from Spider-Man and Debbie Ryan from Jessie. If you remember that from the Disney Channel, I remember I caught a couple episodes of Jessie back a few years ago, and actually I thought it wasn't that bad of a show. But yeah, Debbie Ryan is in this, and it's kind of funny because she of course she was on a Disney show, and in this show, in this film, she's constantly swearing. She's got a nose ring. She has like plastic balls hanging from her rear view mirror. So it's this very kind of it's almost like her just going, look, I'm not squeaky clean Disney anymore. But it's good. I like Debbie Ryan. I want to see her in more things. I think she's a fairly talented actor. So I've laid out, the problems I had with this film, but what's kind of weird is that about midway through, and I think it's about the point where he jumps into her body and you have that, for some reason, and I give it to the charm of the lead actor and her ability to have chemistry with a lot of different actors all playing the same person. That takes some guts and that takes some talent, so I think her charm, her ability to have chemistry, and the excellent acting of all these different people playing the same character against her, all of it comes together to kind of make the movie kind of quietly delightful. I don't think this is an Oscar winner. This isn't going to turn anybody's head. I don't think it's a star turn for anybody. But, as far as teenage movies go, you could do a lot worse. A lot worse. I mean, I kind of find it funny that this film seems to handle things, even the things it misses the point of and doesn't quite hit all the way, it seems to handle itself with more maturity than the film starring Melissa McCarthy aimed for adults that's coming out. That is an adult acting as immature as possible, and here we have a film about teenagers acting and handling things with maturity. So final grade on this one, that's a tough one. It's a tough one. But I think I'm gonna go B- on this one. I think it missed the mark on a lot and wasn't as forward thinking and all that as it would like to think it is or would like to believe it is. But that being true, I think there is a genuine heart to it. I think there is a solid message that they're trying to convey, and I think, again, while not star turns for anybody, or I think this movie's not going to make any best actor lists, I think the acting on display from both our main actress playing Rhiannon and all the other characters, I think you've got a nice pool of hopefully genuine talent coming out in the next couple years. I think once some of these kids kind of mature up a bit, I think you may have some really heavy hitters coming in. So yeah, I was a little reluctant to go to a teenage movie and to a love story, given my week, but, you know, kind of glad I did. I think I made the right choice out of the things that were available. You know, and sometimes that's, you know, so far with 2018, that's kind of the best you could hope for, is the, you know, do the best you can with the shit that's there. So yeah, so that's every day. Not a bad one. Kind of a nice surprise. So, we'll see what comes up next. Spring break's coming up in a week, so I'm going to try to hit another spring break at the movies, see some of these things, and try to get some guests back in here, to help boost this up, and, yeah, we'll see what happens. So, until next time, for Chewy, Mr. Chirpy, and myself, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.